Good day, and welcome to my presentation, Marine Fish Stocks, a Tragedy of the Commons, Problems, Policy and Solution, by myself, Naika. So in this film, what I will be doing is reviewing the concepts of the tragedy of the commons, externalities and cause theorem, and how they relate to the fish industry, i.e. overfishing. I will do this by firstly looking at the environmental issue of overfishing. So, what exactly is overfishing? According to the Environmental Defense Fund, overfishing is the catching of too many fish all at once before the fish can replenish and recover itself. This is often seen mostly with commercial fishing when unwanted animals are hauled into the fish nets and discarded. Due to this, many of the world's fisheries are now depleted. However, many of the world's fisheries have still not been studied. So why does overfishing matter? This overfishing damages the ocean's ecosystem and many people who rely on seafood as a key source of protein. If fisheries aren't well sustainably kept, they collapse and the world will fall into a food shortage. Poor fishing management leads to overfishing. Poor governance often makes overfishing a lot worse. Let's go back with a bit of history. So, in the 17th century, the Atlantic cod was plentiful in the Northwest Atlantic, so much so that it even formed the foundation of the New England economy. Many people relied on cod for their livelihood. And in the 1960s, new fishing technology allowed for cod to be caught in bulk as fishermen could fish much deeper but also much quicker. But in Newfoundland and Canada, fish stocks had collapsed majorly. The situation became so dire that the Canadian and United States governments had to stop cod fishing and impose restrictions on the industry respectively. The fishing shutdown in Canada led to many people losing their jobs, income, and even their homes. People moved away from the coast in search of work. Because cod was such a major predator, the animals it used to prey on, such as shrimp and snow crab, proliferated. This altered the food and web functioning of the ecosystem. This is called a trophic cascade and is a common consequence of overfishing. The increased demand for shark fins and meat has led to a 99% decrease in some shark species. Sharks used to prey on cow-nose rays, and these preyed on bay scallops. Without the sharks eating the cow-nose rays, more cow-nose rays started eating bay scallops. Many bay areas are closed, hoping that the bay scallop will recover. As cited by the Environmental Defense Fund, these examples illustrate how overfishing impacts more than just a single species of fish, as their removal can have consequences for the entire ecosystem. So this is a perfect example of the tragedy of the commons, because fish is a public and not a private good. There are negative externalities that come from the collapse of the fish industry. Certain states or countries have tried to combat the end of the fishing sector through various means. In Mexico, the shrimp trawlers have been designed in such a way that turtles cannot get through it. If they do, there is a manner in which the Ridley turtle can get out without getting hurt. This has allowed the Ridley turtle in Mexico to recover. And this lessens the harsh environmental impact fishing has on the environment, but also it allows fishing to continue in the future and it can provide the jobs that it does for a longer amount of time. So this shows how organizations have used course theorems by safe bycatching to rectify the negative externalities, which would be loss of jobs, of the collapse of the public good, which is fish. So, following this, we are going to look at the analysis of the fishing industry in South Africa. So, the South African coastline covers over 3,000 kilometers of coast, and this links the east and the west coast of Africa. So these shores are particularly rich in biodiversity, with about 10,000 or more species of marine plants and animals that are actually recorded. So the productive waters of the west coast support a variety of commercially exploited marine life. This includes hake, anchovy, sardine, horse mackerel, tuna, snook, rock lobster, and abalone. And then on the east coast, you have your squid and your lionfish. Lionfish is more of a South African term, and that just tends to be the fish that is in the shallow waters, that is easy, for fishermen to catch. Um, and also a wide range of other resources that provide an important source of food and livelihood to coastal communities. So the marine life that is not harvested, such as the whales and the dolphins, they are being increasingly recognized as a valuable resource for nature-based tourism. Hermanus is one of the best places in the Western Cape to go whale watching. Trust me, I have experienced it myself. It is amazing. So you may be wondering why there are so many fish in the West Coast, and this is because of the upwelling of the cold Benguela current. So the nutrients from the bottom of the ocean are pushed up, and that attracts a lot of fish, which provides an opportunity for fishermen to harvest the fish. So in total, fisheries contribute about $274 billion a year to the global GDP. But let's look at some South African statistics. So, as stated in the Mail and Guardian in 2015, the South African Deep Sea Trawling Industry Association said that 95% of the fish caught in the Western Cape, so the 95% of the fish is caught in the Western Cape. Hake is obviously the largest amount of catch, coming in at about 145,000 tons per year. And the fishing industry brings in 5.4 billion rands of revenue every year, and foreign exchange comes in at 3.5 billion rand. Over 27,000 people are employed in this industry. So you can say what you may, but fishing is a huge business and it creates so many jobs, and that is because it is such a popular commodity in South Africa. So, according to the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, the main challenge in fisheries is to create a balance between maximizing the social and economic potential of the fisheries industry whilst protecting the integrity and quality of the country's marine and coastal ecosystems and addressing the transformation in the sector. The government not only acknowledges fisheries for the environmental and biodiversity benefit, but also their importance to the economy and the economic benefits as well. And according to the South African Sustainable Seafood Initiative, also known as SASSI, in 2018, they said even though fish is a very popular commodity, many of the global fisheries have now been declared depleted. Overfishing, like climate change, is a global environmental challenge. South Africa has 22 fisheries, but 80% of line species, like cod, is said to have depleted. So there are a few reasons as to why overfishing is unsustainable. So the first one we're going to look at is bycatching. So bycatching is when unwanted animals like seabirds or turtles are caught by accident during overfishing and are thrown away. So that is known as bycatching. Trawling is when a fishing net is dragged behind a boat in order to catch fish, and unwanted animals are caught by accident here too and are often thrown away. Marine mining, that is another very unsustainable activity, as this can lead to the depletion of fish stocks on a huge scale. In an interview with the Mail and Guardian in 2015, Saul Rue, who is a legal campaigner for the Center for Environmental Rights, stated that more than 150,000 kilometers of South Africa's exclusive economic zone is under application for prospecting rights. This is alarming as it could negatively impact South Africa's fishing industry and the marine economy if these are converted to mining rights. Rue did lobby this to which the Responsible Fishing Alliance was a key member. They did end up winning this case. So what I have found in my research is that whilst overfishing is a huge problem globally and yes in South Africa, but South Africa is actually fishing quite sustainably. So one of the things South Africa has done is they have invested 3 million rand to support projects that promote a responsible fishing industry by the Responsible Fishing Alliance and to do away with harmful fishing practices. One of their projects include partnering up with BirdLife South Africa and the deep sea trawling industry. The outcome of this project led to less seabirds and albatross being killed. These projects are recognized globally, and this makes South Africa attractive for foreign investment, which is really good. So the local deep sea trawling fishing sector was recertified in 2015 by the Marine Stewardship Council. And this is what they had to say about it. So this is the third time South Africa's deep sea trawling industry has secured certification from the MSC. In 2004, it became the first hake fishery in the world to be judged by the MSC as sustainably well managed. The latest certification comes after a 12-month reassessment process during which an independent certification agency scrutinized every aspect of the fisheries management and once again found it to comply with the MSC's main principles. These include that the fishery is conducted in such a way that it does not lead to overfishing or a decrease in the stock, that fishing operations do not impact on the health of the marine ecosystem, and that fishing is managed and regulated in a responsible way. Something like that is a really good plus for South Africa, and the fact that there is global recognition, that is amazing. But then, whilst South Africa has its upsides, it also has its downsides. So, on the 12th of February 2018, the Cape Argus released an article saying that Irvin and Johnson Limited is allocated 13.4% of the Patagonian toothfish total allowance catch. Accordingly, a total of 5 fishing rights have now been allocated in this fishery, and 2 vessels are authorized to exploit the South African catch allowance. So, what does this mean for third party organizations? This decision came under huge scrutiny as it did not benefit the locals, especially the fishermen. It did not promote food security and job creation, as the local fishermen could have benefited from having rights. The fisherfolk felt excluded, and like the big companies, thought all this fish belonged to them, when in fact it actually belongs to the state. This is really where you can see on a local scale how the tragedy of the commons comes into play. What are some of the solutions that South Africa can implement? So, about 10 to 12 million metric tons of fish is lost annually due to spoilage. So, better care should be taken when transporting and distributing the fish from one destination to the other. This can be done by making sure that the fish is kept at low temperatures at all times, and all tools used on the fish are properly cleaned. So this, also diminishes the risk of South Africa losing a lot of money, because 50% of South Africa's fish stock actually feeds the South African population. Another thing they can do is people that use safe fishing methods, such as traditional fishing methods, should be rewarded with incentives. This could be in the form of more rights to certain areas of the ocean to fish, or in the form of money to support and grow fishing businesses. This is a great way also in order to support the the small fishing farmers, the ones that do tend to be a lot less well off. So, according to the Department of Agriculture, Forestry and Fishery, the current solution South Africa is currently undertaking is the following. So, because South Africa's coastline spans over two oceans, it's got numerous lakes, dams, rivers, and streams, and this is what you call a fisher's paradise. However, the recreational fishing may only be done under a valid permit, and recreational fishing is limited to certain times of the fishing season. So, to reduce user conflicts between the commercial and recreational fishing, um, they have they have put in place to protect stocks during breeding periods. So certain areas are declared closed, and aquaculture incorporates breeding, trading, or rearing aquatic organisms in a controlled and selected aquatic environment for recreational, commercial, or subsistence purposes. So the small scale fisheries policy, uh, this seeks to address the imbalances of the past and to ensure that small scale fishes are accommodated and are properly managed. So, for the first time, fishing rights will be allocated on a group rather than on an individual basis. So, the policy further aims to support investment in community entities to take joint responsibility for sustainably managing the fisheries resource and to address the depletion of critical fishery stocks. So, after this hefty PowerPoint, it is really evident to see that time is running out for our oceans and our fish stocks, and action should be taken immediately. So, thank you so much for listening to my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it and found it at least a bit informative, and you learned something that you didn't know before.